It started as a routine traffic stop, just another day on the job for Officer Daniels. A suspicious-looking car, a nervous driver, and the instinct to dig a little deeper. But what happened next? No one could have predicted. As he leaned into the back seat, searching for anything out of place, his hand brushed against a large plastic bucket. Without thinking, he lifted it, only to be drenched in a foul-smelling liquid that sent him gagging and stumbling backward. The bystanders gasped. The driver, he just stood there, wide-eyed, barely holding back laughter. But here's the kicker. This wasn't just any car, and that wasn't just any bucket. Unbeknownst to Officer Daniels, the vehicle belonged to a highly ranked U.S. general, and that bucket, well, let's just say it had a very specific purpose. What happens when a cop, a bucket, and a powerful military official collide? Stay tuned. This one's unforgettable. Officer Daniels stood frozen, dripping in the awful-smelling liquid, his face twisting in shock and disgust. The driver, a middle-aged man in a plain t-shirt, finally let out a chuckle, shaking his head. "Oh man, you really did it." His reaction wasn't what Daniels expected. No anger, no panic, just amusement. That's when a small detail caught the officer's eye. A military ID card sitting on the dashboard. The name on it. One that made his stomach drop. The vehicle belonged to none other than General Richard Thompson, a decorated U.S. military leader. Daniels had unknowingly just humiliated himself in front of someone with serious authority. But there was something else. Why was a general's car parked in this random part of town? And what was in that bucket? His instincts told him this was more than just an embarrassing mistake. Something wasn't adding up, and he was about to find out why. Daniels wiped his face with his sleeve, the awful smell still clinging to him. He looked at the driver again, his mind racing. If this man was connected to General Thompson, why was he driving the car? And why did he seem completely unfazed by the situation? "License and registration," Daniels said, trying to keep his voice steady. The man sighed, reaching into the glove compartment. "You're not gonna like this," he muttered, handing over the papers. Daniels barely had to glance at them before recognizing the official military insignia. His heart pounded. This wasn't just any car, it was government-issued. That meant one wrong move could turn this into something much bigger than a simple traffic stop. Then, something else caught his attention. A small metal case tucked beneath the seat. It looked important. Maybe too important. Daniels hesitated. Should he ask about it? Or had he already stepped too far into something he shouldn't? Daniels stood there, torn. The metal case beneath the seat felt like it was staring back at him, its presence looming over the entire situation. The man in the driver's seat was still calm, too calm for someone who'd just witnessed a cop spill a mysterious substance on himself. The silence between them grew heavy. Every second felt like it added more weight to the decision Daniels was about to make. Should he ask to open the case, or walk away and pretend like none of this had ever happened? The man in the car didn't seem surprised. He simply muttered under his breath, "I guess the game's up." The tension in the air thickened. Daniels was no longer sure who was in control, or what he had just stumbled into. As the two men in suits approached, Daniels' instincts kicked into overdrive. He knew something wasn't right, but he couldn't yet put it all together. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the puzzle in front of him. General Thompson's car, the mysterious bucket, and now these military intelligence agents. His grip tightened on his gun, but he didn't want to escalate things. The atmosphere was charged with a tension he hadn't felt before. One of the agents stepped forward, his gaze sharp. "Step aside, officer," he said, his tone flat, almost rehearsed. Daniels didn't move. Something about the man's demeanor was unsettling, like he wasn't here just to investigate the situation, but to control it. The second agent kept his distance, watching everything with an unsettling focus. His hand twitched toward the case, but just as his fingers brushed it, the man in the driver's seat spoke, his voice low and serious. "You don't want to know what's in there." The words were soft, almost a warning. It sent a chill down Daniel's spine. Suddenly, The sound of tires screeching cut through the quiet. Daniels whipped around, his heart racing. A black SUV skidded to a stop just behind him. Two men in dark suits stepped out, their eyes scanning the scene with cold precision. Without saying a word, one of them reached into his jacket and flashed a badge. U.S. Military Intelligence. Daniels froze. What the hell was going on? Before Daniels could respond, the driver leaned back in his seat, letting out a slow, deliberate breath. "You should have stayed out of this, officer. But now that you're in, there's no going back." A sudden realization hit Daniels like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a simple traffic stop gone wrong. He wasn't just dealing with a few wayward military officials or a prank. What was inside that case, and what did General Thompson have to do with any of this? The weight of the situation grew heavier by the second. But then the unexpected happened. The first agent reached into the SUV and pulled out a small black device, a phone, no bigger than the palm of his hand. "We need to talk to the general," he said, his voice tinged with urgency. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. What was going on? This was bigger than a simple arrest. The stakes had just been raised, and everything he thought he knew about this situation had just shifted in an instant. The clock was ticking. Would he uncover the truth before it was too late? Or had he just signed up for something far beyond his control? The tension hung in the air as the agent dialed the number on the small device. The seconds stretched into eternity. Daniels stood frozen, his mind reeling from the chaos unfolding around him. The driver didn't move, watching everything unfold with an eerie calmness. Then the phone rang. It was a sharp, sudden sound that broke through the silence. Daniel's pulse quickened as the agent held the phone up to his ear, his face hardening as he listened. "Yes, sir," the agent said, his voice changing, becoming more formal, more clipped. He glanced up at Daniels, a warning in his eyes. "We've got a complication. The officer, he's asking too many questions." The driver shot Daniels a look that said it all. They had control now. But before Daniels could react, the phone clicked off. The agent turned to the second, who was still observing from the SUV, and nodded. Time to move. Suddenly, the world around Daniels felt like it was closing in on him. The first agent stepped forward, his cold gaze never leaving Daniels. "This is above your pay grade, officer. Back off." But Daniels couldn't. Something told him he was on the edge of uncovering something monumental. He glanced at the case again, still hidden beneath the seat, his curiosity now overwhelming any fear he might have had. He couldn't let it go. Just as the agent reached for his arm to pull him away, the phone rang again. This time, it was a different tone, urgent, panicked. The agent's eyes widened. "No," he muttered, reaching for the device again. In a split second, everything erupted. The SUV's door slammed open, and from the corner of Daniel's eye, he saw two military vehicles pulling up behind him. In the chaos, the man in the driver's seat flung open his own door, and for the first time, Daniels saw fear in his eyes. "You don't know what you stumbled into," the driver whispered, rushing past him toward the case. "It's not just a bucket, it's something far worse." Before Daniels could react, the agent shoved him aside, and everything around him seemed to fall apart in an instant. The case was opened, revealing not weapons, not documents, but a small device, glowing faintly, almost alive. And that's when the truth hit Daniels like a freight train. This wasn't just about military secrets. This was about something far more dangerous, something that could threaten everything. The device was a key to unlocking something they had all been hiding. As Daniel's mind tried to make sense of it, the world around him went dark. The final twist came too late. The agent, the driver, none of them were who they appeared to be. And as the sound of sirens grew louder, Daniels realized too late that he had become part of a much bigger, far more dangerous game than he ever could have imagined. When Daniels finally came to, he was in an unfamiliar, dimly lit room. His head throbbed, and the confusion that had consumed him only grew. But what he had learned in those brief moments before the world went black echoed in his mind. The device, the glowing key, it was something they all feared, something that could change everything. As he tried to move, a voice broke the silence. "You're lucky to be alive," the agent from earlier said, standing in the doorway. "You've seen too much. But we're not killing you. Not yet." The agent paused, then sighed. "You were never meant to be part of this, but now that you are, we'll make sure you're handled." Daniels didn't answer. He didn't need to. His fate had already been sealed, but one thing was certain: the truth, whatever it was, had already escaped, and the world would never be the same.